taking a look at every video that has anything to do with MCU. Welcome to the vast space that we call YouTube. YouTube, a weird place to be, with people dishing out comments on Twitter. Neil deGrasse Tyson, my left shoe. I don't think it'd be only fair to talk about the Birdman. I think covering it as a whole would be a lot more entertaining and better, and not trying to copy what everyone else does. Hi, welcome back. My name is Sen, and welcome to the small channel of the unknown, the nobody, the people in the dark. That's me. Welcome to the trenches. And I'm here to just give you my 2 cents. So, without further ado, let's get started. Now, I have specifically picked a couple of videos. I have a couple of posts from Twitter, and the specific video that I have is the critical drinker. Remember, I said that I wasn't going to be flaming the Birdman so hard. We're just going to watch this 10-minute video of the critical drinker that's talking about Disney, talking about what Disney is going to do and what's next for Disney. And that's it. And we'll go from there. But sometimes I like being in the trenches of the unknown because I don't have an opinion about anything. You can see my search as MCU current state. That basically the topic. If you want to know specifically what I'm trying to talk about, current state of MCU, and then we'll work up to why people form those opinions and yada 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 yada. But let's give this video a watch. I have not seen this video from the critical drinker. Like I said, I don't live online, but let's just start tiptoeing into it because we're coming up on spooky season, and I kind of want to cover what they have, with Beetlejuice. Might go see Beetlejuice. I don't know. Who knows?
Oh, how times have changed. 4 years ago, the original Captain Marvel catapulted its protagonist into an MCU at the very peak of its popularity and influence, where every single movie they churned out was a guaranteed smash hit. Captain Marvel herself was widely tipped to become the next Tony Stark, the new face of the brand, the character that was going to lead Marvel into the next decade and possibly beyond.
Now, to be fair, he's 100% right. Because remember, I'd said a couple of videos back, if you remember me saying that Captain Marvel was one of my favorite all-time characters in the comic book sphere, and how it was written, how they were written in the comic book was very good. I can get behind those stories of the many universes and the comic book history. Remember, we're separating the two. Okay, we're coming from huge fans of the comic book strip. Separate that. We're going strictly into film, which is why I picked the critical drinker, because I'm not going to only dog on the Birdman. I have a lot of agreeances, maybe some disagreeances in there, and then how they act to us. So I'm speaking from a purely consumer standpoint, a fan of the comics and a not so big of a fan of the movies. So bear with me.
But it turns out a lot can happen in 4 years. The MCU is now a faltering and tarnished brand with a string of failed movies and TV shows in its wake, increasingly alienated from its own fan base and openly mocked and ridiculed by a mainstream media that now smells blood in the water. While Captain Marvel herself has become kind of a sad, embarrassing mistake, ostracised from the rest of the MCU and restricted to a handful of meaningless cameos to remind people that she even still exists. As the years went by, the contractually obligated sequel was repeatedly delayed, rewritten, reshot, and dogged by rumours of problems on set, conflicts with the studio, and trailers that desperately tried every trick in the book to generate some kind of interest in this movie. But just like a giant post-kebab turd, Marvel could only hold it in for so long before it finally had to be squeezed out into the world. And so, here we find ourselves staring down the barrel of The Marvels.
That is one big pile of shit.
The movie kicks off with generic space wizards.
Okay, mind you, to this point that okay, so Captain Marvel came out. Remember, it's squished in between two huge movies that did very well. Okay, I'm not saying that this movie did not do well. Specifically, why it did well was because it was sandwiched. Let's be honest, it was sandwiched between two very good movies. I think there was another one in between that if we going to the dates, but this was supposed to be setting up for like the new um Avengers, let's say, because in the comics they swapped the Avengers. Uh, as far as my understanding, the comics also were adjusting to the movies to kind of like keep track with, uh, because Disney owned both. They're trying to keep track with money with the comics and then keep track with the movies. This movie did so poorly, and then we're talking about peak decline. So we're coming from the highest point and we're starting to go down. People are still going to go watch the movie. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about like their stance of why they went at it the way they did, and their target audience, which was consume product and don't ask any questions, just consume product type stuff. Uh, so yeah, we're gonna continue the video, and then we'll go into what they posted on Twitter, and then I think we have one more video of like the current state, maybe their movie ideas coming up, and then talk about that as a general. But I'm speaking purely from my opinion only, not talking about anyone specific. I'm just using someone else's work that they did on YouTube. And yes, I am being a lazy poo-poo head, but until I get the edit down, then I'll start creating my own. But I'm very much interested in making these videos. So again, just keep that in mind that I'm not on any side. I'm just a purely consumer.
Lady who digs up a magical bullshit bangle from a random planet somewhere, which turns out to be the counterpart to the other magical bullshit bangle used by Kamala Khan. You know her, don't you? Oh wait, you don't. That's probably because she's a character from an obscure Disney Plus show that nobody watched. Speaking of obscure characters from Disney Plus shows that nobody watched, Monica Rambeau is now working as an astronaut for Saber, and she's got the power to go flumpy and pass through solid objects after getting a spell cast on her by Scarlet Witch.
Scarlet Witch in the comics, 10 out of 10. Very good, strong female lead character. Always has been. Omega level mutant. Scarlet Witch is a Omega level mutant. As far as my understanding, she's an Omega level mutant. There is only, actually, if you look at the roster for Omega level mutants, there's a lot of them. Specifically how they set up this in the movie sense didn't make any sense, because like, are they implying that an Omega level mutant is able to give someone else? We'll say I'll say she's probably a C tier class mutant. If that's a thing, then they could have turned that story into something way more. Yeah, they could have. Oh my god, they could have tackled that so much better than what it was, than what we got as a consumer standpoint. And yes, I do agree these movies were pretty bad. No one did go watch. No one watched because it's at home, right? This is post pandemic. So no one did watch that at this current state in time when he's talking about is Disney Plus, and it's already skyrocketing down. Sales are falling off. People are canceling. People are not watching movie theaters. From a consumer standpoint, it is looking pretty bad. As far as any movie critics that were out there, they got highly ridiculed if you talk good about it. People are like, "Did you even watch the film?" So yes, in a sense, I do agree almost all the way. But we have to be really specific about what we're talking about for you to hear the disagreements from me. Because if it's specifically about the story, I'm going to agree. If it's specifically about them as actors, I disagree, because it's not their fault. It's nothing but the writers.
Fuck me, this is getting convoluted already. Anyway, the system of magical bullshit space portals that everyone apparently uses to traverse the universe are starting to act kinda weird, so the hollowed out shell that was once Nick Fury sends Captain Marvel to investigate. And wouldn't you know it, Monica Rambeau decides to investigate one herself at exactly the same moment. right. Oh my goodness, what are the odds, eh? Then there's a big energy surge and everyone swaps places with everyone else. Although it did have me wondering why their clothes go with them, but Monica Rambeau's spacesuit doesn't. Probably because the prospect of a teenage girl explosively decompressing on our screens would have turned it into a very different movie, but whatever. The point here is that all three of our diverse heroes are now quantum entangled, so if two of them happen to use their powers at the same time, they'll magically swap places. Well, when it's convenient to the plot at least. Why does
True. Like, it was such a bad idea to be like, if they all use their same powers at the same time, not same powers, but if they all use their powers at the same time, then yada, 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 yada. Why? Why? If you ever watch Supernatural, huge fan of Supernatural because those actors also come from Texas, but that's like saying if Sam and Dean cuss at the same time, then they swap places. It probably would have made a lot more sense in Supernatural because of like the whole point of that series is just supernatural. So, with Cassel and the demons and angels. I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but it was not for Disney. The decision they made, was this the best idea? In this movie aspect point, no.
does this happen? Don't know.
Just consume product and then get excited for next product.
Anyway, much hilarity ensues before the three of them figure out that all of this is being orchestrated by generic space wizard lady who.
By the way, can we talk about? Sorry, excuse me, I'm yelling. By the way, can we talk about why did they have like, what was it, a 24-hour live stream of cats? Why? That was so random.
Who's actually a Kree fighting to save her homeworld from extinction after Captain Marvel triggered a destructive civil war by destroying the AI that was keeping everything running. And that also caused their son to die out somehow, because civil wars are well known for that sort of thing. Fuck me, who wrote this nonsense? Oh yeah, and the more she messes with the magical bullshit bangles, the more damage it does to the magical jump point network, ultimately threatening to tear apart the fabric of reality itself. Oh my goodness, another Marvel movie about a giant scary space portal that has to be closed before it destroys the entire universe. Truly, their imagination knows no bounds. So the three diverse women have to.
You know what I thought about when that kind of storyline came up into play? It was like Call of Duty, Halo, what was it with the Titans and stuff? But like they all had like huge explosion, AAA game, just explosions. It was just like for me, it was tiring as a Call of Duty player, seeing the same thing over and over and over again about like the world is in crisis. We have to do this last mission, and we have to go. Oh, we gotta go talk to ghosts and then do a stealth mission. And at this point, that's like the backstory of like every other consumer out there. If they were playing games, we already got that kind of cinematic universe in the games. So when we go to the movies, it tracks that it doesn't make sense that we're kind of tired of like the big explosions, we have to save the world kind of thing. Because we see it so much in video games too, and also the video games they were skyrocketing down as well. I mean, look at Black Ops 6. A lot of people are not liking Black Ops 6, and old Call of Duty fans. I played every single Call of Duty there is out there, and I think other people have said Medal of Honor too. Is that we're tired of seeing the same thing. We want something new. We don't want recycled old stuff that has already made it. It made the company what it is. And now you're just rehashing the rehash of the let's make a remix of and drop someone that you know, and that it's tiring. It's just boring.
To learn to work together to stop generic space wizard lady from destroying the multiverse or something, while Nick Fury contends with an outbreak of alien cats on his space station. And then they seal the portal, but oh no, Monica Rambeau gets stuck on the other side in a different reality, where Beast from X-Men shows up for some reason, and her mum that most people forgot even existed is apparently still alive.
No way!
And that's it, that's the plot for the Marvels.
fuck?
You know when you bump into some asshole who made life miserable in high school that you haven't seen in like 10 years, and you notice they're wearing faded jeans and a sweat-stained t-shirt, they've gained 50 pounds and smell vaguely of cheap booze and stale.
Hey, don't talk about me. All right, I'm going to the gym. Okay, I am fat. Fat shame me, please. I'm fat. Going to the gym. Don't talk about me like that. I do look like that when I sit down.
Urine, you might have imagined you'd feel some kind of satisfaction in the knowledge they've failed so spectacularly, but instead all you experience is a lingering sense of sadness and pity. Well, that's kind of how I felt watching The Marvels. It's 105 minutes of absolute directionless, passionless,
It's however long minutes of girl power.
funny cringe, awkwardly chopped and spliced together from what I assume was once a much longer cut, and shuffling embarrassingly onto the screen like even it knew how shit it was and just wanted to get the whole painful experience over with as quickly as possible. And in a lot of ways, it really wasn't the film I imagined. I expected some defiant last stand against the armies of haters just waiting for it to fail, a production bloated by ego and consumed by bitterness, well aware of its impossible position and determined to go out guns blazing. Instead, what we got was a weirdly small, unambitious, almost apologetic kind of film, half-heartedly going through all the old Marvel tropes but knowing how trite and predictable they've become. A film made by a studio that's lost its confidence, lost its magic, lost its way. I mean, on the plus side, the obnoxious
Like the perfect explanation of every single Marvel. Can I fucking speak, please? The exact same explanation or example to describe what Marvel and Disney is doing currently as a whole, like the new Snow White movie. Weird. That was so stupid, but it's just recycled. It's old. I would like a new story. What are they going to do with Fantasia 3000? Do you remember Fantasia 2000? That is my all-time favorite Disney movie, without a doubt. Fantasia 2000. I don't really, honestly, to get kind of sidetracked, I've never heard anyone talk about Fantasia 2000. That's like, I don't know why it gave me nightmares as a kid, but it did. I think it was like the music that they used in it. Now that I watch it, I'm like, oh, this is just like no one speaks throughout the whole movie. And you see like every Disney character. It was good, and that's why I also like the game Kingdom Hearts. Oh my god, Kingdom Heart.
preoccupation with tearing down some imagined patriarchy and proving how Captain Marvel could do everything better than the boys that blighted the first movie is more or less absent here. I never got the sense that the film was trying to push any particular agenda or preach to me about social or political issues, so that makes a nice change from Marvel.
You've got to do better, Senator.
Yeah, without any of the political pushback, remember from consumer level, like I already got to deal with real world stuff, like going to work and just dealing with the shit that I have to do at work. I don't care about. Don't put politics in movies. Just make it the movie. The whole point is to like go and escape reality. Just like when you're playing video games, as soon as a video game has political views, it's immediately downhill. As soon as a movie has political views, it's immediately downhill. I mean, even the prequels for Star Wars, they had politics in it, and it's like, oh, shit, you know?
You've got to step up.
Kamala Khan is mostly pretty likeable throughout the film, and I think a lot of that comes down to Iman Vellani's performance. You can tell she's having a lot of fun and she's excited just to be there. Shit man, even Brie Larson gets to show a bit of personality for once. She's not going to be winning any Oscars for this one, and there's times when those behind the scenes tensions seem pretty obvious in her performance, but generally she comes across.
I'll say it time and time again. If you haven't watched two previous videos ago, it was the Critical Drinker versus the Birdman drama. But I said, it's either that one or the one after that. I said that Brie Larson is actually a very good actor, and she got the short end of the stick with how she's been treated. She's got like bad screenwriting, but like Brie Larson, if you give her like the capacity and the good story writing, she can deliver. She can deliver, but political views aside, her personal views aside, I think she could still potentially be a very good actor. That's all I'm saying. Brie Larson is not as bad as other people are putting her out to be. Yes, her political views, and just kind of ignore that. Go for her. Go to her as like a movie character standpoint, and she can deliver because like that's what she gets paid for. She doesn't get paid for her opinion. Like in the military, you don't get paid for your opinion or paid to think, right? You just get paid to do. Kind of like the same thing. Attack it like that. Just get paid to do, and then any of the hush hush you do on the side, who cares? But just do your job, and people will just generally come back to you. Like, yeah.
Is far more human and likable than she did in her first movie. The direction from Nia DaCosta is generally competent enough, apart from some truly reprehensible CGI that probably wasn't her fault, and one or two of the early fight scenes with constantly switching characters actually border on fun and imaginative. But the problem is they're overshadowed by the movie's massive writing and editing flaws. The character swapping thing was clearly a response to Captain Marvel being overpowered as fuck and needing some way of limiting her abilities, which really smacks of a problem that they created for themselves. You guys chose to make her into Superman without the kryptonite, and now
And honestly, like currently, like I know this video was in the past, but if you want to talk about Gambit, which is another favorite of mine, if you want to talk about Gambit, not nerfing himself, because in the comics he kind of foresaw his future of like destroying Earth and stuff. They have to establish, like in the new Deadpool movie, they have to establish that this is a Gambit that nerfed himself. Otherwise, I'm going to expect the Gambit that destroys the Earth, not the Wolverine Gambit that we got. That was just like, blah, blah, blah. Channing Tatum's is fine. Gambit is also another Omega level mutant. So if you have Scarlet Witch, you have Gambit, you have Magneto. There's a Magneto in there. I think Xavier is one, if I'm not mistaken. Phoenix. You're gonna have, just off the top of my head, Captain Marvel. I guess she would. Captain Marvel. And then who else from this universe? I can name 6 off the top of my head that are Omega level mutants, which is why people can say that she's a bit overpowered. Well, that's kind of the point, is that Omega level mutants are extremely overpowered. So this is the universe that they now currently have set up. So what are we going to do with all these Omega S class, B class, A class? What are we going to do with these superheroes? Could they save it? It's Disney, but they could have potentially, if they had great writers, a story here. Is it going to save Disney? I don't, probably not, because Deadpool, is it solely going to save Disney as a company? I don't think so. Just because you have one good deed, it doesn't kind of balance out the bad that you've done, especially to your consumers. We'll see. The future, we're still waiting on that.
now you're having to concoct bullshit reasons why she can't just fix every problem instantly. Nick Fury might as well not even be in this film because it feels like his subplot is completely disconnected from everything.
Oh, by the way, yes, how she's written in the movie is pretty bad. We know that she is one of the strongest Avengers, but you have to also keep in mind that in these specific comic strip, you have to talk about. I think it's World Breaker Hulk that gets brought up in that same universe of Captain Marvel, because that's when Thanos comes in, and in this specific sense for the Hulk series, he kills everyone else, yada yada yada. But like, we have to pick a lane of which comic books that we want to go into. I know Marvel is like notorious for like, let's combine this comic book with this comic book, but we're gonna lead with this storyline of this comic book. But that it doesn't really work out because the writers have wrote that universe to, in a sense, work up to that point, and it makes sense. But if you take from this comic book, that comic book, and you try to mesh it together and make your own storyline, a lot of things aren't going to add up because of how it's specifically written. So for Disney right now, it's basically, you know how for the Wolverine movies, they had to like go back into the past, and now we have a new X-Men team, and then they try to like correct it, going back in the past again as Wolverine, and Mystique is in office, and she's supposed to be in office in character playing Mystique for like how many years? Like it didn't make any sense at all. That's why they had to keep redoing it over and over again, because they're getting caught up within the old writer stories of, because they don't read the comics. Now they're getting caught up into like the endings of those comics, so it's not going to make any sense at all. It in any if anything, they should not end the storyline. They could have a big event, but don't end that storyline, because once you come to a conclusion, which is kind of the point of a movie, right? Um, Beginning, middle, end, climax, peak, and then the ending of the movie. Just have the build up, and then have it go into like a medium level, and then the next movie just pick off from that same energy, so you can introduce a new character in that same universe and go over their backstory, giving you the backstory of that character and how they're gonna mesh in between for any future Marvel movies. Just don't conclude it at the end. Don't say, "Oh, we saved the world" at the end. And I think that'll solve a lot of your problems. Just keep the stakes high to where like the audience is like, "Oh yeah, we're coming back into how are they going to go about this?" And just do like, I guess, chapters of that peak energy that you have, and introduce, get up to the same climax, introduce, get up to the same climax, single movie, single movie, single movie, then conclude with your big ending. If that doesn't sound good to you, sorry, I'm not a writer, but 'cause strictly consumer, playing video games for a while now. I think the furthest for a storyline for a video game is like 3 games, but they all have to do with like kind of the same story, and then they climax at the very end, and they tie a lot of loose ends in the end. So it sounds like a jumbled mess right now, but if they kind of attack it kind of like that, it'll make a lot more sense. It'll be well written, and we'll have people that we know, and they can conclude with a banger, like the Avengers. They shouldn't have ended. They should have been like, and now we're on to our next objective, and it keeps you as an audience member just waiting, like, what are they gonna do next? That's just my idea. From a consumer standpoint, that's something that I would go to the movies every time they come out with another movie. Does it make me tired of watching superheroes in that aspect? Absolutely not, because I'm just getting an introduction to a character to complete the whole story. Uh, yeah, just attack it differently, and don't release these single terribly written, the world's coming to an end type of movie. It's going to get old, and it has got old.
Everything else. If you haven't watched Secret Invasion, then you're probably gonna have no fucking clue what's even happening here. I mean, really, he basically stopped being Nick Fury the moment he got his eye scratched out by a fucking cat.
Oh, motherfucking!
And the goofy imposter playing him seems to care less and less about keeping up the facades. Generic space wizard lady is exactly that. Completely forgettable, barely getting a shred of development, and she's pursuing her goal in the most ridiculous way imaginable. Like, she basically wants revenge against Captain Marvel for destroying.
This also includes the scroll that they led with in the Disney Plus series of like them all being scrolls. Like, just delete all that, please. Just have a scroll die off. We don't care about the scrolls. We do not care about the scrolls. You need to redeem all these characters that you have written so well in the movie at the time of Avengers, and especially Endgame. You need to do them justice and send them off. Nick Fury dying, whatever. Just make it a good climax ending for that specific character, and keep the story pushing. If you want to make it into a huge franchise people will love from a consumer standpoint, then you need to up the storytelling, you need to up the writing, And you definitely need to, like, I don't know, cut back on some of the money. They spent how much money in that CGI, which is awful. But is it any fault of people being rushed? And absolutely not. It's just purely who's forcing these people to like not finish their work, kind of thing. Uh, but yeah, sorry to keep pausing.
destroying her people, and she does it by hurting the people that she cares about, but there's nothing to prevent Captain Marvel from doing the exact same thing again. The quantum entanglement thing wasn't something she was even aware of until later in the movie, which means there would have been absolutely nothing to stop her. You can really tell that this film was butchered in the editing room too. Characters magically teleport from one location to the next with nothing to link them together, and I'm not even talking about the stupid bangle thing either. They just show up wherever they need to be. Potentially interesting character arcs and relationships are barely hinted at, and then resolved with no real explanation. Like, one of the big sources of tension between Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau is that she never visited her after her mother died because she triggered a Kree civil war and was apparently trying to fix it, but there's nothing to suggest that she actually tried to help them in any way. I mean, with all her godlike powers and abilities, she basically could have fixed most of their problems overnight. Or for example, imagine if Kamala Khan realised the woman she'd looked up to as a hero was actually a bit of a monster responsible for millions of deaths. What might that do to their relationship and her perception of her? Would it trigger a crisis of confidence? Maybe teach her to rely more on herself than putting others on unrealistic pedestals? Fuck knows, because the plot barely even addresses stuff like this. I mean, why bother with that kind of thing when you can have an excruciating song and dance sequence that goes on forever and serves absolutely no purpose to the story? Or an entire subplot about space cats eating people? All of it is nothing but a ridiculous conglomeration of absolute nonsense thrown together by a studio that's completely lost confidence in its own work, and in some ways, it really feels like the end of an era. It's almost certainly the end for Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, who's made no secret of her dissatisfaction with the character and seems pretty reluctant to play her again. And to be honest, I don't blame her one bit. She's in her mid-30s now, and those prime opportunities are going to start drying up before too long, and really, I can't imagine she needs or wants the hassle of playing a character like this anymore. But more than that, it feels like the tired and played out end.
That's very fair to say. I mean, again, Brie Larson is a good actor, but that's a very fair thing to say. I mean, she's no Hugh Jackman. Wolverine, how old is he? Ryan Reynolds is getting up there, right? Idris Elba, Samuel L. Jackson. It just depends. Like, it depends. But some of these guys just, they hit their role because of how they're written. They always hit the role. And them just being as an actor themselves, Shia LaBeouf being one of my all-time favorite actors too, and like growing up with him, watching him in TV shows, like Shia LaBeouf delivers too, and he gets heavy into it. Brad Pitt, Fury, there's just a lot of good, well-written movies. But once you get up to that age, yes, I do agree that the opportunities start to fall off. But it's entirely up to Brie Larson.
Of the entire Marvel formula, the bloated budgets, the heavy CGI, the quippy self-referential humour, the sky portals, and the armies of disposable bad guys. It's all become so tedious and boring and predictable that people aren't even angry anymore, they just don't care. The original Captain Marvel was a divisive movie that inspired debate and controversy, but this one falls victim to a far more insidious problem: absolute apathy. This really is how the MCU dies. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. Anyway, that's all I've got.
Again, full agreement going on there, unless we want to specifically talk about certain situations, but you have to talk about a specific situation to get me to disagree with his in general statement about what's going on with Marvel. Is Captain Marvel a bad character? No. How is she? Is she written as a bad character in the movies? Absolutely. You have to be specific in what we're talking about to come to an agreement or disagreement. And if you want to talk about the agreements, because odds are someone disagreed with that, that's a discussion. And then entirely on the other spectrum, if you disagree, again, you have to talk to someone who agrees. Now we're having a discussion about what Disney is doing, and that's what you want, because now you have fans. Now it's not sounding like, well, you just hate it because Brie Larson is a woman. No, because we're all fans, so why can't we all have an opinion or agree or disagree with each other? That's, you know what I mean? That I hate that. I hate that narrative. Uh, so here's here's a video, or I'm sorry, a picture that I found about. This explains a lot about Disney fans, and this is kind of like what pops up in my head about the people writing hateful comments. Like if you're a if you're a Marvel fan, this is exactly what you look like, and you can change the picture however you want. But I kind of laughed at it. Again, we're talking about some old subjects at this point. It's already past prime YouTube videos. I mean, 10 months ago for the from the Critical Drinker, no one's talking about it anymore. But I think people should be reminded of why we have these opinions about the movies just sucking right now, and entirely from a consumer's standpoint. If we all put in our opinions on Rotten Tomato, why are these critics saying that, oh, it's actually a very good movie, 10, or this is a very good movie, 7? All of them are like above sevens or something. Doesn't make the slightest bit of sense. I forget which one this one. So yeah, this is from the Whatever podcast. We're not talking about Disney just separated from your minds, but just in the real world, these are some of the people that are watching these movies. So I'm trying to like tie it into the other audience as well. Like I said, I'm not playing either sides, but this is what we hear when you guys are like complaining about calling everyone incels or racist, misogynist, every name in the book, right? This is how this is what's being said to me from the outside standpoint.
My feelings based in the science right now, based on the statistics.
Science can't give you aughts.
The statistics are saying
science is
psychopaths are getting younger
science,
and younger.
But it doesn't tell you what you ought to do with that information. Is claims are not ought claims. You saying science backs up my ought. Science can't back up your ought. Ought claims are not made scientifically. Those are just is claims.
Why
this is
should
true.
you be allowed to live? What are you contributing? What are you contributing to society?
I have contributed to the next generation and still am.
How?
What are you talking about? Because I'm still raising it.
How are you raising them?
I have fucking children, lady.
Are they allowed to twerk if they want?
No, of course not. Of course not.
So your children have
Are your children allowed to get beard on their face like you do in your pics? Is your child allowed to go right now? Or is mommy going to pat him on the head and say, "Good job, sweetheart"?
My feelings based in the science right now.
So again, just a little video I'm trying to tie in with some, and we're talking about we'll say she's far left extremist, okay, which is how is she thinking? But you can kind of make the comparison of the same ideologies that the Acolyte crew had. I'm not going to bring up the post because I think a lot of people are getting taken down from that. I don't know if they still are, but being a small channel, I might get away with it. But no, I'm not going to pull up the twerking video of the Acolyte actor. Pretty much telling everyone that they're a misogynist, incel, blah, 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 every name in the book. It's just bad. So this is like, from a third person, this is what I hear every time I even open my mouth in the comic session of someone that disagrees and said, well, this movie was just amazing. And then this is how you get attacked of like, my feelings are science. So I thought it'd be like a little fun video from the Whatever podcast. Now I'm not pushing any narratives, but this is just what I see as a third person perspective of the world and what's going on right now. This was posted 22 hours ago, so this is very much relevant to how they're kind of attacking movies currently. And then this, I believe, this last one is what's Disney's next move. Another 10-minute video. And I have not seen this video, but it's always cool to get other people's opinions, whether I disagree with them or I agree with them. It's in general a good thing as a human being to be able to have discussions like an adult and conclude and agree or disagree, but like come to a consensus of like we're in the realm of making things how we want to make them in the world, right? Just making it, can't please everybody, but just make the situations make sense across the board in movies. Keep politics out of movies and yada 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 yada. So we'll watch this, and then that'll be the conclusion of, I guess, the series or whatever that I just suddenly got bit by a video spider, and I'm trying to get some people to agree or disagree and come to consensus on whatever opinion they have with movies nowadays, especially with Disney. Uh, and I think that's going to take me forever because it's Disney, and we have to kind of go through whatever they have released up to this point, and then watch the newly stuff that they released, and then yeah, it's going to take forever, but it's a good thing. All entertainment.
You're probably aware of this situation already. Bob Chapek is no longer CEO of the Walt Disney Company and has been replaced by former CEO Bob Iger. Explore any part of social media at the moment and you'll see long-winded discussions about how this changes everything for the flailing company amidst several years of controversy. And in fairness, it changes a lot, just not in the way that many might be hoping for. It's a late Sunday night when Bob Chapek gets a call from Disney during the Elton John concert being live streamed on Disney+. You're out. And that's it. No PR spin, no official memo, nothing that says Chapek had gone to live on the farm with your cousins a few states over while you're in school. Instead, every employee within the Walt Disney Company simply received an email telling them that Bob Iger had returned. From the man himself. So, how did we get here? Many forget that Chapek was hand-picked by Iger to take over the company as CEO upon his departure. Initially, Tom Staggs and Jay Rasulo were groomed as potential candidates as well, but after several disputes which saw them leave the company, Chapek became the clear choice. Bob Chapek became CEO when Iger stepped down on February 25th, 2020. Just weeks before the world would be plunged into a global pandemic. With no parks and no movies in theaters, Chapek was in charge of Disney during what would arguably be their most stressful years of operation. Thankfully, the company came out on top, but not without its scars. The pandemic gave credence to sometimes difficult, sometimes problematic, and often just plain bizarre decisions. But the spotlight was really placed on Chapek after the world had settled and the excuse of COVID-19 got a little exhausting. It was clear that Chapek had no idea how to steer Disney in the right direction. With every earnings call announcing further losses and failures, additional jobs and positions would be cut. Many of these were creatives. And Iger wasn't exactly complacent in watching the company he grew simply wither away. Since leaving the company altogether last year, Mr. Iger had been known to dominate lunch conversations around Los Angeles, with talks of how he thought Mr. Chapek had taken Disney in the wrong direction. Some associates said Iger would fixate on the topic so much that it became uncomfortable. At another time, Iger even told one confidant that Bob Chapek was killing the soul of the company. Bob Chapek didn't understand the importance of creatives within a creative company.
I want to know how much they got, like how much their bonuses were for just taking what Disney built up for I don't know how many years, like before I was born, obviously, but I wonder how much they took home and they were just like, I don't care. That's insane. Insane.
Company. And equally the influence that said creative company had on culture, such as his refusal to say anything about the Don't Say Gay bill early on, which turned a lot of people against him and placed unnecessary pressure on the company. He also rubbed many individuals in Hollywood the wrong way, with a major example being the Scarlett Johansson situation. He thought he and Disney were untouchable. Unfortunately for him, Disney wouldn't have his back for long. Things really turned when Chapek fired Peter Rice back in June. Chapek saw Rice as a threat to his position and removed him from the business in a 7-minute meeting regarding a major restructuring. This move probably made Chapek feel safe, but it made many executives feel uneasy, with many now wondering when their meeting would be called or when they would be thrown under the bus. Disney's board of directors had apparently been at work looking to replace Chapek since summer of 22, with these events slowly ramping up the pace, which leads us to last.
Mind you, okay, so you said during the pandemic, post-pandemic. So like that's the things that we're seeing with like Bob Iger and yada yada yada. Who cares about these high-end shills that get paid millions of dollars? We don't really care. Give me a product that's like that means something that I can escape reality, and that's just my opinion. But this entire thing went on for like years. And then the consumer, and we're seeing, remember you saw the chart that it's just going down, 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 down. They have a good movie, down, 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 down. And from Disney's standpoint, it's like they cannot afford, literally they cannot afford to keep this up for much longer. And I'm going to say in a sense of like 8 years. If they continue like this, they're going to eventually just die as a corporate company. And we can say whatever we want about like corporate shills and people that take home like millions of dollars as a bonus, and like the people working at Disneyland and stuff that need that job, and how badly they get treated. And let's not talk about the how badly the workers get treated, or like if they are sick and they miss a day or they get fired or whatever. It's just like that's just the basic employee of any corporate. Like my corporation sucks. They do very well every year. They bring in like $120K a month. Like they bring in so much money, but they can't afford to pay their workers. It's the same thing with Disney. And am I all for a corporation failing that doesn't treat their people right? Of course. But we're talking about like Disney. Like eventually it will die. And this is just some of the backstory of like why it's going to die. This is we're in the peak Armageddon for Disney. They definitely should not get too comfortable thinking that they are not touchable, because you know gods can fall in this aspect of these corporate companies. They can fall at any point, and I'm all here for it. That's just me wanting some tea, but I'm all for it. And shout out to the workers, man. Shout out to the workers that are getting abused there, and they just like my fellow employee from another employer. These corporate people need to learn to like stop messing with the people, because the people are what put them where they're at in the first place. So the people can always bring them down, because we put them there to begin with since the beginning of Disney's creation. Yeah. And RIP the good companies that used to produce very, very cool our childhood movies. What is it? Fox. I think Fox is gone. All these other movie companies that got bought out by Disney, like, kind of sucks. But even with everything combined, they are still failing, which is hilarious. Like you have everything that you need and could have ever dreamed of, and you still suck. You suck.
Last week, at 3 p.m. on Friday, the board reached out to Bob Iger, and then on Sunday night it was announced he was back. Considering that Chapek was his decision, Iger felt he needed to go back and clean up his mess. So what's next? First things first, don't expect huge sweeping changes to be made overnight. While in the theme park realm, the pandemic necessitated a lot of changes to be made in rapid succession, any rush to update or change things again could have an even more negative effect on the brand and the company. Of course, Iger's familiarization with the company and how it ticks will allow him to make speedier changes than an entirely new CEO would be able to. So what are his next moves? What's unfortunately likely to stay, and what's likely to change? I feel the most major changes will come to the streaming branch of the company, as things like the parks are making money running themselves. At the most recent earnings call, it was announced that Disney Plus reported a $1.5 billion operating loss in the previous quarter, with shows like The Incredible Andor failing to move the subscriber needle enough.
1 point something billion. Homie, you give me 10 grand and I'm like, oh my God. I get one subscriber and I'm just like, dude, I'm so rich. I'm the richest guy here. But that's what I love about being in the trenches. I think he's going to continue on. That's a good video from Review Time. I think is how you pronounce it. It's just a year ago. So since this video came out, I don't think much has changed with how Disney's approaching their their Disney Plus series or their movies. Besides, again, we have to exclude Deadpool because Ryan fought so hard for that movie and giving Channing Tatum the role that he wanted as Gambit, and hopefully he can make something out of that. But as far as what Disney's doing with their online services and even Netflix, their online services, don't even get me started about the backlash for like you're a woman hater. We're excluding all that. They're just failing and failing and failing from their Disney Plus series to Netflix to what was it, Rings of Power off Amazon. Like it's just as a general consensus, they had everything in their back pocket to pay to win, literally pay to win. It was an endless printing, or it was an endless money printing idea that they have, and they all of them ruined it. And I think this is highly hilarious for things to transpire like that. That's all I got. Leave a like, subscribe. Let me know your opinion. Where is Disney going to be in 10 years? Is Disney going to be gone in 10 years? How long is their money going to last if they're losing billions of dollars, millions of dollars for this, billions of dollars for that? Share your thoughts and let's have a discussion. In the last video, I did conversate with everybody. Going to try to conversate with everybody on the comment section. I can't really see the new ones if you left a comment, and I don't want to have to keep going back to the video. So I'll keep it a time frame to keep responding. Like when I'm at work, I can do that work or something when I'm doing night audit. But how my work schedule is set up is terrible. So leave an opinion, leave a like, dislike. Let me know if you want to keep seeing things like that. And I'll see you in the next one.